Some lessons, if understood early in life, can change everything. My name is George, and I am 74 years old. If you had asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you that I was the perfect husband. I never cheated. I never gambled. I never came home drunk. I provided a life for my wife, Diane, that most people would envy. We had the big house in the suburbs, the country club membership, and 3 beautiful children who went to the best schools. I worked 60 hours a week for 4 decades to ensure that Diane never had to worry about a single bill. I thought that by being a provider, I was being a partner. I thought that by paying for the life, I was actually living the life. But 3 years ago, on the night of our 40th anniversary, Diane sat me down in our quiet, expensive living room and said words that shattered my entire reality. She looked at me with a sadness I hadn't noticed in years and said, "George, you've been a wonderful provider, but I've been alone in this house for 40 years. I don't know who you are, and I don't think you know who I am either. I'm telling you this because I know there are thousands of men watching this right now who are exactly like I was. Now, you think you're doing the right thing. You're grinding for the family. You're staying late to get that promotion. You're the guy everyone counts on at the office. You tell yourself that your absence is a gift you're giving your wife and kids, a gift of security. But I am here to tell you, from the other side of a 40-year mistake, that security is not a substitute for intimacy. You are trading the soul of your marriage for the ornaments of a life. I am 74 now, and while I have the house and the retirement fund, I am living in a house with a woman who feels like a polite stranger. We share a bed, we share a bank account, but we don't share a life. And the worst part? It's entirely my fault. Let me take you back to 1982. We had been married for 6 years, and our first son was a toddler. I had just been promoted to a management role. I remember coming home late. It was always late, and Diane would have a plate of dinner waiting for me. She'd try to tell me about her day, about the funny thing the baby did, or the book she was reading. I would nod, I would eat, and I would check my watch. My mind was already on the 8 a.m. meeting the next morning. I thought I was being a hero because I was tired and still working. I'd say things like, "Honey, I'm exhausted. Can we talk about this later?" But later never came. I wasn't just tired. I was unavailable. I was building a career, and I treated my marriage like a hobby that could wait until I had more time. I remember one specific evening in the early 90s. It was our 15th anniversary. I had planned a big dinner at the most expensive steakhouse in town. I bought her a diamond necklace. I thought I was winning at being a husband. But during the dinner, my pager went off. Yes, it was that long ago. I spent 20 minutes of our anniversary dinner in the lobby of the restaurant, talking to a client about a shipping delay. When I came back to the table, Diane was just staring at her wine glass. I put the jewelry box in front of her and said, "Sorry about that. Big deal on the line. Look what I got you." She didn't even open the box. She just said, "I didn't want a necklace, George. I wanted a conversation." I laughed it off. I told her she was being emotional. I told her the necklace cost more than our first car. I thought money was the language of love. I didn't realize that to a woman who loves you, time is the only currency that matters. By the time our kids were in high school, I was at the peak of my career. I was traveling 3 weeks out of every month. I was the success story in our social circle. People would tell Diane how lucky she was to have a husband who worked so hard, and she would smile and agree. But behind that smile, she was learning to live a life that didn't include me. She found her own hobbies, her own friends, her own world. I thought I was giving her space. In reality, I was forcing her into a solitary confinement that she eventually grew used to. I thought that once I retired, we would reconnect. I had this image of us traveling the world, holding hands, finally having the time we never had. But you can't neglect a garden for 40 years and expect it to bloom the day you decide to pick up a shovel. When I retired at 68, I realized I didn't know how to talk to my wife. I didn't know what she liked to eat for lunch. I didn't know what her fears were. I didn't know her favorite movies. I would walk into the kitchen and she would look surprised to see me there. I had become an intruder in the house I had paid for. I had spent 40 years being a provider, and in the process, I had provided myself right out of her heart. We sat at the dinner table in a silence so thick you could feel it in your bones. I had the money to go anywhere in the world, but I didn't have a partner who wanted to go there with me. That night of our 40th anniversary, when she finally spoke her truth, was the most painful night of my life. She wasn't angry. She wasn't asking for a divorce. She was just resigned. She said, "George, I appreciate everything you've given us, but you were never here. Even when you were sitting in that chair, you were at the office. I stopped expecting you to show up years ago, and now that you're finally here, I don't know what to do with you." I realized then that I had won the game of career and lost the only thing that actually made life worth living. I had been so busy winning that I didn't realize I was playing the wrong game. The realization Diane shared with me that night wasn't just a complaint, it was a diagnosis. She was describing a marriage that had died of malnutrition while I was busy trying to buy the finest groceries. I spent the next several months in a state of quiet shock. I would look at her across the breakfast table, this woman who had raised our children, who had stood by me during every market crash and every career crisis, and I realized I was looking at a stranger. I tried to fix it the only way I knew how. I tried to schedule quality time. I tried to plan elaborate outings. I treated our reconciliation like a project at the office with milestones and goals. But Diane didn't want a project. She wanted a person. She wanted the George Thune I had buried under 40 years of ambition and responsibility. One afternoon, I found a box of old letters in the attic. They were from our first 2 years of marriage, back when we lived in a cramped one-bedroom apartment and shared a car that barely ran. I read those letters, and I didn't recognize the man who wrote them. That man was curious. He was romantic. He wrote about the way Diane's eyes crinkled when she laughed, and how he couldn't wait to get home just to hear about her day. That man was broke, but he was rich in every way that counts. Somewhere between that apartment and the mansion we live in now, I traded that curiosity for a paycheck. I stopped asking questions because I thought I already knew the answers. I stopped listening because I thought my voice was the only one that mattered in the business of our family. I see men in their 50s and 60s now, and I see them making the exact same trade. They are successful by every societal measure, but their wives are lonely. Their children are distant, and they are so convinced of their own righteousness as providers that they cannot see the damage they are doing. If you are that man, I want you to look at your wife tonight, not at the woman who manages your household or the mother of your children, but at the girl you fell in love with. Do you still know her? Do you know what she dreams about when she's alone? Do you know what she's afraid of? If the answer is no, then all the money in your retirement account is just a pile of ash. You are failing at the only job that truly matters. Diane and I are still together. We are working on it, as the therapists say. But it's hard. It's the hardest work I've ever done, because it requires me to be vulnerable in a way that my career never did. It requires me to sit in the discomfort of her silence and realize that I earned every bit of it. I'm 74, and I'm finally learning how to be a husband. I'm learning that a good day isn't a day where I accomplished a task. It's a day where I truly saw my wife. I'm learning to ask her about her day and actually listen to the answer, without looking at my phone or thinking about what I'm going to say next. I'm trying to make up for 40 years of absence, but the truth is, you can't fully make it up. You can only start from where you are. The most heartbreaking part is realizing what I missed. I missed the real Diane. I missed the nuances of her growth. I missed being her best friend because I was too busy being her benefactor. I see young couples now, sitting on a park bench, just talking, and I feel a physical pang of envy. They have what I threw away. They have the now. They haven't yet been poisoned by the idea that they need a better life before they can start enjoying the one they have. I want to tell them, stay broke. Stay in the small apartment. Just stay present. Don't let the pursuit of more steal the enough you have right in front of you. I retired with millions of dollars, but if I could go back to 1982, I would trade every penny of it for a different life. I would have taken the lower paying job that let me be home by 5. I would have listened more and lectured less. I would have realized that Diane didn't need a mansion. She needed a partner. I would have been the man who was present instead of the man who was perfect. Success is a hollow victory if the person you love most in the world doesn't want to celebrate it with you. I am a success story to everyone except the person who matters most. If you're watching this and you're still in the grind, I am your warning. Your wife doesn't want the bigger house. She doesn't want the luxury car. She wants you. She wants the man she married, not the person that career stress has turned you into. Don't wait until you're 74 to realize that you've been building a life for a ghost. Look at her today. Listen to her today. Be the man who shows up, not just the man who pays the bills. Because at the end of the road, the only thing that will be left is the connection you built, or the silence you created. Thank you for letting me share this. It isn't easy to admit that you've failed at the most important part of your life, but if my regret can save one marriage, then it's worth the sting. If this resonated with you, if you feel that distance growing in your own home, please leave a comment. Let's talk about how to bridge that gap before it becomes a canyon. Like this video to help it reach the men who need this wake-up call. And subscribe if you want more honest conversations about the reality of aging and relationships. Now please, turn off this screen. Go find your spouse. And for the first time in a long time, just listen.